come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubble gum.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct from the SHR Media Studios. Oopsie. If anybody happens to be watching on the SHR Media Facebook page or the SHR Media YouTube channel, I think I distinctly see something missing that I customarily have. But tell you what, I'm gonna do it right now because the song's gonna run out on me. What am I missing? Guess what? Just wait a second. Okay, that's better. Oh boy, you got a belly up to the bar. We kept your seat and it's great to see you back. Blaine is going to be your bartender tonight. He pours with the best of them, and the lava lamp is in fact lighted to my left, your right, indicating that you can watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. Yeah, you know what? We don't water our drinks just like we don't water our conversation, politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all here at the Saloon. Nothing is sacred. The speech is free, but the booze is not. All we ask is that you flush the toilet, jiggle a handle, and don't forget to tip your waitress. Okay, and for those who happen to be listening and chatting on shrmedia.com and they're not watching the show, what I had to do is, of course, every time I think, hey, I'm ready, right? Until I'm apparently not ready, and I discovered that I hadn't turned the lights on in the back. So what you saw were just some curtains, and now I had to turn the red light on and the blue light on. Now all is well. All is well. In chat already, we've got Mike. Welcome to Mike. We got Mary Brockman. Welcome to Mary. Whiskey Dale. Welcome to Whiskey Dale tonight. It happens to be Thursday, the 19th of July, the year of our Lord 2018. And for the first hour tonight, we're going to have some happy stories. And some happy stories. The first happy story is definitely a happy story. The second and third happy stories, well, if you're looking for a massive dose of schadenfreude, look it up, then yes, story number 2 and story number 3 would indeed be happy stories. For the first hour, I'm going to be talking once again to author Jim Curtis. The reason I wanted to have him on is I spoke to him, I believe, last year in May. So it's been over a year since I've spoken to him. And in that amount of time, a lot has changed. Number one, he's published some more books. One of them is an anthology called Cal Exit, which is exactly what you think it's going to be about. And he's got a new Kindle book and a new John Cronin book in the Gray Man series. We'll get to that. That's going to be the first hour. He's going to be calling it about 8:15. The second hour, oddly enough, just like I said on Sackheads last night with Sackheads Clint and the Sackheads Against Tyranny show, the Chat Show, the only chat show that I'm aware of on the internet or even on terrestrial radio at all, period. I said last night that this story of Lisa Page's testimony and what she revealed to Congress, to the House, was probably not going to be splayed all over the American media maggot landscape. And would anyone else be shocked to discover that, no, it wasn't? So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Peter Strzok. We're going to talk about Lisa Page. We're going to talk about the FBI. And we might even get some stuff in about the Democrats. I don't know about anybody else, but being banged into the ground, I'm tired of hearing about Russia, Donald Trump, because essentially that's all the Democrats have. So let's, Gallery, if I only had a producer. Well, I do. It's my left hand. And without any further ado, or much ado, or a little bit more ado than I had before, or a dippity do, there's this.
It's time for happy stories and good times.
And here's the first happy story. This is from KHOU 11, and it's under the aegis of crime. Husband shoots home invasion suspect holding wife at gunpoint. The husband managed to shoot one of the suspects in the head. This happened at a home in southeast Houston, near Scott and Airport, Houston. Police say a husband opened fire on 2 home invasion suspects as they tried to hold his wife at gunpoint overnight. This happened around 10:30 Tuesday at a home in a southeast Houston area near Scott and Airport. According to the Houston Police Department, the husband managed to shoot one of the suspects in the head. Now, if I had a producer and I had lots of applause, note to self, get a sound cut that has lots of applause on it. Okay, damn it, if I can't remember to turn on the damn lights behind me, how am I ever going to remember that? Well, I know, I'll watch the show again tonight. So, thanks, BZ, for reminding BZ. Investigators said it all started when the man's wife pulled into their driveway Tuesday night. Then the 2 armed suspects jumped out and tried to rob her. First, they took her purse. Then they tried to force her into the house. However, that's when her husband showed up. He heard the commotion from inside, grabbed his gun, and ended up exchanging gunfire with the intruders. Fortunately, the couple were not hit. One of the suspects was hit in the head, police said. The other suspect took off running. Police said the injured suspect was taken into surgery. As for the couple, one can only imagine what was going through their mind when this was all over. Hopefully they're able to find some peace of mind this morning, knowing that they're okay. And that's why you have firearms. It's not for hunting. It's not for Bambi. It's for self-defense against individuals and fill in the blank. And I think you can fill in that blank most frankly, in my opinion. The second story in Happy Stories and Good Times. You might not think this is happy, but I'll explain. Trust me, I will explain. This is from the Los Angeles Daily News. San Francisco's mayor won't crack down on people using the city as an indoor toilet. Now, if you recall last week sometime, I noticed an article about the new mayor of San Francisco, a female, the first time that apparently that's happened, has said that she can't believe when she got there how much poop there really was in the city. And then I thought, okay. That's not going to go well for her. So apparently since that article and now someone or a series of someones have gotten to her and said, look, this is San Francisco. We don't talk about that. We don't address reality because, after all, we're in San Francisco, and after all, we're in Fornicalia, which is not that terribly far from Sacramento, which is where I am broadcasting right now. And don't think that people in Sacramento, hence its name, don't poop in the streets here as well. It's just that per capita, San Francisco happens to have more poop per cubic yard than Sacramento. See, isn't that a plus? That's a happy story. And here's why I equate it to a happy story. That the San Francisco mayor, her brain has now been straightened out, so she's not going to crack down on people who use the city as an outdoor toilet. We don't need a little less shit in Sacramento or in San Francisco. Well, hell, in Sacramento too. We need more. So let's do the logical common sense thing, right? Let's not do a damn thing about it, and let's just pretend. Let's just pretend it doesn't exist. Because in leftist skies, they're purple, they're beautiful, and if you ignore it, mostly it tends to go away, doesn't it? So the reason I'm saying that it's a happy story is that Once you go to San Francisco these days, one time, you'll never be back. And just like I say, never spend any money in San Francisco. Never spend any money in California. Do not come to California to visit. Do not come to California for a vacation. It mostly, especially, particularly if you're a Caucasoid, it doesn't want you. And then hence, I would submit, it probably doesn't want your money either. For an abundant number of reasons. Stay the hell out of Fornicalia. Just a little important safety tip, and it really is a health safety tip now, from me to you. And here's the, this is an article from the Washington Times. This just came out, I think about an hour or two ago. And let's say you're an NFL fan. And let's say that you're really looking forward to the coming season. And let's say it's July. And let's say that training camps and whatnot and some of the preseason stuff starts next month in August because, yeah, it's going to. You've heard about that little niggling funny little thing called the NFL players kneeling. And then you heard about that thing where the NFL players or the NFL owners said, I think we've come to an agreement that if you want to kneel, you can kneel inside in the locker room, but the moment that you cross the line out of the tunnel and onto the field, if you're on the field, you're going to kneel. Well, the NFL Players Association wasn't having any of that crap, so they decided that they were going to sue the NFL owners only about a month or so after they made that agreement. It took them a while to figure out, I guess, how things roll in their brain housing groups. And so they're going to sue. And now, because of, apparently, the impending lawsuit, this article indicates, I can't wait for this season, I really can't. This article indicates NFL freezes anthem protest policy. And if you're not a big fan of the NFL, like I'm not a big fan of the NFL because they have disabused me of watching the NFL anymore. I have literally gotten out of the habit and couldn't care less about the NFL. No money, no watching, no promos, blah, blah, blah. This article just came out. The National Football League put on hold Thursday, today, its policy requiring players on the field to stand for the national anthem. In a statement, the league said it was engaged in, quote, confidential talks with the NFL Players Association to resolve a grievance the union had filed last week against the league, as I indicated. In order to allow this constructive dialogue to continue, we've come to a standstill agreement on the NFLPA's grievance and on the NFL's anthem policy, the NFL said in a statement today. No new rules relating to the anthem will be issued or enforced for the next several weeks while these confidential discussions are ongoing. So I guess it takes literally weeks on their planet to come to a decision of some sort. And does the phrase regarding this, does the phrase say unintended consequences, does that ring a bell with anyone? Because I think in a little bit it just very well may. The union also agreed not to engage in litigation over the new rule issued in May that said players who do not stand and show respect for the flag and the anthem can be fined. Our shared focus will remain on finding a solution to the anthem issue through mutual good faith commitments outside of litigation. Right. It wasn't immediately clear whether the statement countermands team rules, such as that issued earlier Thursday by the Miami Dolphins, saying players who disrespected the flag or anthem can be suspended for up to 4 games. And we have, so much for this, we have our first hour's guest in here tonight. And it's going to be my absolute pleasure to introduce, for the second time now, Jim Curtis to the Berserk Bobcat Saloon. He goes by the name of Jim. I originally discovered Jim a while ago, or a number of years ago, when I came upon his blog, Old NFO, at blogspot.com, and it was otherwise known as Nobody Asked Me. And his motto is Veritas nos liberatit, which means the truth will set you free. And we first talked to each other last year in May of 2017. And he and I both have blogs, and we read each other's blogs, and we've commented back and forth on each other. But I hadn't known then that Jim is an accomplished author. And I want to have him back on tonight because I'd like to talk about some of the new books that he's written. Now, he currently has 4 books out that I've read, beginning with The Gray Man, vignettes, first published in 2014. And I want to make this clear, not to be confused with the Mark Greaney series on The Gray Man. Gray Man for Mark Greaney is with an A. Gray Man for author Jim Curtis is with an E, and I'd like to make that distinction. Jim published 3 more books in the series: The Gray Man Payback in 2014, The Gray Man Changes in 2016, The Gray Man Partners in 2016, and he also had a foray into science fiction with his newly published book, Rimworld, Into the Green. And then there is his newest book in the Gray Man series, Twilight, and that was published in February of 2018. Not to mention, and again, what we'll talk about tonight, an anthology of 10 stories published in October of 2017 called Cal Exit. And then on the side, Jim Curtis slipped something else into the mix and didn't tell me about it, but I had to go find it. And I don't have it yet. I'm going to have to order it on Kindle. It's a new story, which kind of plays at the end of Cal Exit, and it's called The Morning the Earth Shook, available on Kindle. So, once again, about a little over a year later, welcome to the Berserk Bobcat Saloon, Jim Curtis, sir.
Good evening, sir. It's a pleasure to be back with you.
Thank you very much. Now, I want to tell people you've got your own niche on Amazon. You have an Amazon.com author page, which to let people know a little bit about who you are.
I've got that and the blog. Those are the 2 main ones.
Okay.
I'm not into the Twitterverse. That's just, to me, a waste of time, to be honest.
Okay.
And the BS out there is so deep right now, I don't even want to stick a toe in that, much less anything else.
We'll kind of get to that in a roundabout way towards the end. But I want to tell people a little bit about you. You were born in Louisiana in 1951 and raised in the Arkansas, Louisiana, Texas area. And you began your education with guns at age 8. And you had a grandfather that happened to carry a firearm for work, so to speak.
Yes, he did. He was a railroad engineer, and as a matter of fact, you can hear a train in the background.
Timing is everything, Jim. Timing is everything. I want to know how the hell you timed that. Because
they run through here every night about this time.
If I thought you were good, now I think you're absolutely phenomenal, okay? I'm just saying that up front. You began competitive shooting in the 1970s, and an interest that you still have when you got the time for it. I love this.
Small towns, you gotta love them.
You do. Your big gig, and the reason you're called Old NFO, is that you are a retired naval flight officer. You spent 22 years serving our country. You are an NRA instructor. You are a retired engineer in the defense industry, and now you are an author who happens to live in North Texas. Important safety tip: you're not far from a railroad crossing as well.
Yeah.
This is fun.
About 6 blocks.
This is great. You have 2 series in work. You have The Gray Man, that's a Texas-based fiction series involving law enforcement officers in the Marines. And also, I think you're going to start a series with Rimworld. And that was started, that was a short story that I think you began on Amazon. And of all things, that was an Amazon bestseller for 5 days after its release. Quite frankly, I think that's a hell of an accomplishment and says a hell of a lot about you as an author. So for the folks who didn't hear you on my show the first time, where were you born and where did you grow up?
Little town called Gina, Louisiana, which was basically in the middle of the piney woods in Louisiana. Little small town. Moved to Arkansas in the late 50s after my dad died. Grew up in a town called Texarkana. Went to school there. Went to Louisiana Tech for about a year. Got drafted. Went in the Navy. 22 years later, retired. Too dumb to get a real job, so I went back to work for the Navy as a contractor.
Oh, cool. What did you do?
If I told you, I'd have to shoot you.
Okay, got it. I think that's pretty clear. Now, you served in the Navy as an NFO, and that's obviously the name of your blog. Can you tell everybody what an NFO is and what you do in that job, or what you did in that job?
NFO is a naval flight officer. In other words, I was the guy that told the pilot where to go and how to get there, and sometimes even politely.
Okay.
I flew primarily in P3s, a little over 7,000 hours in them. Chasing submarines, basically. I was the mission commander and what they call a tactical coordinator, or TACO, in the airplane. So our job was to go find submarines, track them, one of our jobs. We also did surface surveillance, what are called SLOC, sea lines of communication patrols.
Okay.
What we knew them as were what we call maritime air patrol, or map tracks. Those were rather interesting in themselves. Probably the best bad example I can give is the Malacca Straits.
Okay.
Off of Singapore. We would take off out of a place called Butterworth, which was on Penang Island. We would climb to about 200 feet and start the patrol, and 8 hours later we would come back and would have rigged over 200 ships. So that was the name of the ship, the upright sequence, pictures of the ships. Now you got to understand, that area over there was only about 8 miles wide. The main shipping lane through Malacca is 2.5 miles wide.
Wow.
So the ships, now we're talking large 500, 600, 700-foot ships, mixed with 100-foot ships, mixed with the occasional Navy ship and submarines, all running nose to tail at 10 to 12 to 15 knots.
That's dicey. I'd call that dicey.
Yeah, that made for some long days. And it was usually rather warm. And the kicker on that was the old autopilot on the P3 was called a PBN-20. Had an interesting habit. It would pitch down when it disconnected.
Oh, perfect. When you're at 200 feet above sea level, great. That worked well, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. We stayed awake, trust me. We stayed very wide awake.
I bet you did. Now, the P3 is called the Orion for people that are not aware of it. It's a 4-engine, I think it's a turboprop, what the civilian version used to be called the Electra. And the other thing when you're talking about submarine hunting and killing, although you didn't really do any killing yourself, but you tracked them down, was also the utilization of what I know to be sonobuoys. So you guys would drop sonobuoys in the water, and by dropping them in an appropriate pattern, you could have a pretty good idea with triangulation as to who was going where, what direction, what speed, what footage under the water, that sort of thing. That was part of what you did too, I'm guessing.
Oh, yes, very much so. That was one of the more important parts, was to actually be able to maintain what we call maintain a track. And we did that all over the world. As far north as north of Norway to as far south as Ascension Island in the Atlantic to the Indian Ocean to up off of Alaska and Canada, you know, all over the world. And the crews today still do the same thing. They're now doing it with a P-8, which is a modified 737.
Okay.
But it's the same job, the same sonobuoys, and it's still more an art than it is a science.
Yes, exactly. What I would suspect you'd say essentially about the average sonar man or woman inside a Navy submarine. It's an art. Being able to know and calculate what's happening, and you use your requisite training, education, and experience to come to a logical conclusion about what's occurring. And yeah, I can completely see where that would be an art. Let me ask you this, though. When you were doing this, was it the late 70s or the 80s when you were doing it?
I started in 1973 and was still doing it in 1992.
Okay, so you're a Cold Warrior.
Oh, yeah.
And what I mean by that, and the reason I'm pointing that out, is when you're dropping sonobuoys, you're looking for literally Russian submarines, which was, they were the biggest nemesis to us during the Cold War. So this wasn't just practice. This was real world stuff. This was how you kept track of Soviet submarines who were trying to keep as quiet as humanly possible so that you had no idea where they were. So this was highly critical, highly important work that you did that I want to emphasize for the United States. These weren't just exercises. This was real-world crap that could have had very serious consequences had something gone awry.
Yeah, we used to call it the world's largest chess game.
Yes.
Because we were the only organization that actually practiced, if you want to use that term, against the actual enemy we would fight against.
Yes, and at the same time, during the 70s and the 80s, American and Soviet submarines were having a little bit of tag your it themselves, to the point where we would get occasional collisions underwater between American and Soviet submarines. And some people are theorizing that may have had something to do with the loss of I believe, the Thresher, and then there's another Navy submarine that went down that I can't think of the name of it, but that was
Scorpion.
Scorpion, bingo, thank you. And those were two submarines that people suspect was due to some kind of an unknown or yet unrevealed activity between those submarines and Russian submarines. So this was serious, serious stuff in the day. We'll get back to that.
And
we
let me add just one thing.
Please.
If anybody that saw the Hunt for Red October,
Yes.
the sonar tech on the Dallas, the Jonesy,
Mm-hmm.
they are that good.
Yes.
I knew sonar techs. They are that good.
I believe you, because they don't have a choice, really. As a submarine, you are blind. You are completely blind. You can't see under the ocean. They don't have windows. Depending upon the depth, it's pitch black, so you have to rely on the technical prowess of generally one individual in a chair watching a screen and with a pair of headphones, like me right now, clapped over their ears, listening for sounds and trying to identify them with previously recorded sounds so that they can determine what kind of a submarine it is, its direction, etc. So, again, highly critical times accomplished by highly trained individuals like yourself. And as I want to emphasize, these weren't exercises. This was real-time stuff. And had something gone wrong, you could have had potentially some kind of an international incident. And I'm sure there's much, obviously, that you can't talk about for clear reasons. And there's a lot of stuff we'll frankly never know about what happens under the ocean. It's like going to San Francisco and sitting on a beach and saying, today I'm going to watch the international submarine races. Good luck with that. Folks, we're going to have to take a break. We are talking to Jim Curtis. He's an author of the Gray Man series involving his protagonist, John Cronin. We are going to take a break, and we'll be right back. Go nowhere, please.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny, on shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, every Wednesday, live and direct on the SHR Media Network, shrmedia.com. Be there.
human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m., Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through shrmedia.com, highplainstalkradio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender ever,
because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
Hey, who's going to take Sean's chair?
I'll run the buttons if you want.
The what?
The slider
what?
thingies.
The
Those
what?
things.
We have those?
Yeah, right over there.
Where?
It's on the board. That damn technology.
Fucking technology.
I know. What are we going to call it?
Call what?
The show.
What?
The show.
What show?
The new show, Wednesdays. Every Wednesday on shrmedia.com. 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. Sackheads.
Against tyranny.
There you go.
Against tyranny.
I like that. Let's do it.
You guys are port.
Hello. I'm Tim Hart. I'm the guy BZ hires, due to his shameless contract with the SHR Media Network, to voice his promos. He'd like me to tell you that the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be found on SHR Media Network, Spreaker, and YouTube every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American Media Maggots won't. You'll find that the speech is free, but the drinks are not. There, in the saloon, just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ is sending his personal drones of freedom into the wheelhouses and ossicles of lovers of sovereignty and liberty nationally and globally. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, BZ swears that no rights were harmed in the making of this promo.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct here from the SHR, I forgot to say the sumptuous and palatial SHR Media Network studios, 2 miles that way west from the locus of evil on the entire West Coast. And that's Sacramento, Fornicalia, the Bill Mill, where everything that's bad comes from. Now, we were talking to Jim Curtis, an author, and I want to thank him for being on here tonight. And we'll get to his books because he's written a whole bunch of books. But let's go back just a little bit if we could, Jim. What made you want to start your own blog? Because that's kind of, I'm guessing, what got you first into a systemic pattern of writing, or was it?
Well, it was. Basically, I was on gun forums back in the day when they were actually decent. ARFCOM back in the day, Glock Talk when it first started.
Mm-hmm.
I have a Glock that I bought in 1987.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
that predates mine.
And I shoot 1911s both, so figure that one out.
Oh, no, you're a good man for that, I know.
But I was working in D.C., and I was bored. And couldn't afford to go drinking. It just flat cost too much up there.
Damn it.
So we were starting to see the end of the gun forum, so to speak. The infamous Gecko 45 being a good example.
Did you read Kim Detroit, by the way?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Kim was one of the first blogs that I read.
I wish he was back, man.
He is back.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, there's actually a link on my blog to him now.
Oh, damn, I'm going to have to go read him then. Thanks.
Yeah. But I just decided, what the hell? You know, I'm bored. I'm sitting at the computer. Everybody's talking about this blog thing, and I figured, yeah, I'll try it. What the heck? And put the first one up in 2007. And just started doing it from there. And that blossomed into probably about 3,000 readers a day. And the only thing that I really continued on as far as the forums was a place called the Firing Line, which then morphed into the High Road and Sniper's Hide. And to jump ahead a little bit, that's what got me started writing books was, believe it or not, the Firing Line and then the High Road, because Larry Correa was on there.
Okay.
Law Dog was on there. Peter Grant was on there. Marco Cluse was on there. Tam Keel was on there. Oleg Volk was on there. And I watched Larry put this little short story out called Monster Hunters International.
All right.
And I bought one of the original copies when he self-published it. And needless to say, Larry's done a little bit better than I have. He's a New York Times bestseller and quite a few other honors. And just bought a mountain, by the way.
Bought his own mountain. That's an aspiration all of us should have. I like that.
Yeah. But Peter got published. Marco Cluse got published. And I'm sitting there going, wait a minute. I can write as well as these guys can.
And as a matter of fact, you can.
That was the start. Vignettes was stuff that I had basically written online and on my blog. And that was the start. And I've just kind of kept at it since then.
Well, I let me throw this out here, and you tell me if you think this helped or contributed. You started your blog in 2007. I started mine in 2004. Mine has gone nowhere. Yours has gone nowhere. We both realize that writing is hard work, and yet despite having started since 2007, your blog is still there. So that's, to me, a great testimonial in your getting onto something like a terrier and not letting go. So you discovered early that writing can be kind of odious. It can be hard work, and yet it's a lot of fun. So let's go to let's forward now to your beginning the Gray Man series. Did any particular author inspire you in any way to start your Gray Man series with your protagonist, John Cronin?
Well, I would have to say I grew up reading science fiction and Louis L'Amour.
Oh, okay, great. I read both.
So, and Zane Grey. So Heinlein, E. Doc Smith, Edgar Rice Burroughs.
Yep, the classics.
L'Amour, Zane Grey. You know, those were the people I started reading, and then fast forward and I see Larry get published, I see Marco get published, and it's like, I can do this, but the frustration for me in the novels that I was reading in the 2010 to 2014 time frame, when I was sitting on airplanes going all over the world for the Navy, was they weren't realistic first.
Okay.
The gun stuff was not correct in a lot of them. And the protagonist never made a mistake.
Yeah, and you want to hear something weird, Jim? Folks, we're talking to Jim Curtis, who's an author, and he's been on here before in May of 2017. But from that interview, Jim, there's something that I remembered that you said, and for whatever reason, it's stuck in my wheelhouse. I've read Stephen Hunter for years, and I remember one of the comments that you made back in 2017 was, you know what? Stephen Hunter is not as accurate as a lot of people seem to think.
There are some minor things in his books that are not correct. And whether he did that accidentally or he did that for the story purposes, I don't know. I've never had a chance to actually sit down and talk to him. But all of mine, the gun stuff, is correct.
I never forgot that you had said that, and I found that quite interesting. Well, tell us a little bit about your protagonist, John Cronin. Who is he? What's he do? And where does he come from?
Well, when it starts, he's 63 years old in the first book. He's a deputy sheriff down in South Texas, and he is a composite of real law enforcement people that I've known over the years. He's an Army veteran, Vietnam era. He did time with the DEA in South America, and he's an expert on smuggling because of the border. And he's raising his granddaughter because his son and his son's wife were both killed. So he's raising a 20-something-year-old daughter at 63.
Oh, that's easy.
And he's taught her how to shoot, and she's actually his spotter because he's also a sniper. So there was some, shall we say, negative feedback about my female characters being basically men with tits. However, I would be more than happy to introduce those people to the women that she was modeled on because they're real people.
Yeah, and when people say that women are not interested in firearms, for a time, I don't know if it's true, but definitely under the 8 years under Obama, it was women who were making some of the greater amounts of purchases of firearms under his administration. Imagine that. So when people say that your character might be shallow, hey, you know what? Perhaps the people that are making that critique need to get out and find out what's really occurring in the world around them.
Oh, yes. Very, very much so. All you have to do is look at the number of women competitive shooters that are out there.
Yep, very true.
I would love to be able to shoot as well as some of them do.
Well, let's get into some specifics, though, because I want you to promote your newest book. Your newest Gray Man book is called Twilight, and it was published earlier this year. February of this year?
February.
Okay.
Right.
And I want to point out something very important. Again, that Amazon, you had a #1 bestseller under Amazon for 5 days. And if you want to find Jim's books, that's one of the places you can go to find his books. I recommend each and every one of them. I have purchased with my own cash each and every one of them. Jim does not ship me free copies, nor would I ever ask him for that. And I have the people on that I read because I find them interesting. But I want to point out this very salient point. This book, Twilight, that just came out, it received a 93 percentile 5-star rating, something that the so-called big boys and big girls, they frequently don't receive. But having said that, just by the title, the first thing I wondered when I looked at this is, are we seeing the end of the John Cronin series?
There will be one more after Twilight, but what I'm doing is I'm writing the arc of his life, and he's now in his 70s. So he's retiring. He's turning over the law enforcement part to Aaron, the Marine that married his granddaughter.
Mm-hmm.
And he's settling back down to being a rancher who basically has cows and oil wells. And it's the transition period because I don't want to try to keep going forever. That's not productive. Now, I will tell you something, and I'll announce tonight.
Okay.
Probably in about 2 weeks, there will be a 22,000-word short story going up in the Gray Man series called Generations.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. And thank you for giving me the honor and privilege of having you announce that here.
That actually jumps 20 years in the future and features Jace, who in Twilight is 4 years old.
Wow, okay. So what you're saying, I'm guessing, is that you had in your brain a complete arc of where you wanted to go, and as far as you're concerned, you've just about reached where you wanted to be with your protagonist, John Cronin. Would that be accurate? In other words,
that is correct.
You've done what you think you need to do with this series. Whatever it was within you that you needed to get out, you got it out.
Yep.
Okay, let's move on to your first anthology, Cal Exit. Now, that was published late in 2017. So the first thing I have to think of is, okay, why an anthology? And why did you decide that you wanted to do it about essentially the stupid state of California?
Well, the backstory on that is I had been invited to do a short story for an anthology that was going to be published with Tom Kratman and Nick Cole.
Okay.
There were some contract issues. They never did get the contract through for the anthology. I'd already written the story. So that was the short story, which became a novella, The Morning the Earth Shook. I published that in 2017. And I was at a writers' conference in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and some other writers that I knew were talking about it. And they said, we ought to do an anthology. And I said, okay, we can do an anthology. I'll put it together, but I need y'all to contribute stories. So I had about 17 authors that originally said they'd do a story. I ended up with 9. Now, the funnier part to me is the only characteristic that I set for the story was that it took place in 2022 and that they changed the money from dollars to calories. Every one of the writers took a very negative look at where California was going.
I can't imagine why.
Nobody was positive.
That's true.
The interesting part was when it was published, and I have 3 women that wrote short stories in it also, by the way. Got a lot of 5 stars, got a lot of 1 stars. The 1-star reviews actually sold more books.
I bet they did.
Because one of the 5 stars was a gentleman named Kenny Lane, who is better known as Wirecutter online.
Okay.
And he gave it a 5-star. He said, I left California. Everything they say is true.
And when my wife retires, I'm going to be doing the same damn thing.
Yep.
It's interesting, though, that after your book came out, we were going to have something on the ballot where we'd be voting California to split the state into thirds. And the California Supreme Court just came out yesterday and said they're not going to allow that proposition to split the state into thirds on the November ballot. And I found that very, very interesting. Because if you do that, of course, each state gets to have 2 senators. And instead of 1 California with 2 senators, they potentially could have had, because this would have remained a blue state, clearly. There's no question about that at all. They could have potentially had 6 senators. And the Ninth Circuit basically the California Supreme Court basically shot them in the foot.
Well, one of the things that they did, and you already know this, but the way they structured it was that it would stay blue because they put a major metropolitan area in each one of the 3 states.
Exactly. Yes. Sackett Clinton and I were talking about that last night, and we said this splitting it into the geographic area in which they formed All they did was ensure that it would continue to be leftist in nature. So it's like, step back. What the fuck is the point? And the point was, as far as I could see, let's have more senators. Let's have more leftist senators. Well,
that's exactly what happened, because if you read the original Jefferson proposal, they basically wanted to break off Northern California.
Yes, and Southern Oregon.
And Southern Oregon, north of Sacramento.
Yeah,
so
thank
that
God.
Would dump all of the left-wing loonies into the same state.
Yep.
And they could become then conservative, which is what most of the people up there are.
Yes. There may be 10 of us in the state in Northern California. Maybe 11. I'm not sure. It vacillates back and forth, 10 or 11. I'd like to point this out from now and the last time that we spoke, between May of 2017, when I last talked to you, and now the intensity of this nation's divide has gotten to the point where leftists, they are truly advocating violence against those whose views are simply different from theirs.
Yep.
And that's what's changed. And the funny thing is, one of the questions that I had for you back then, because I went and listened to the show, I said, hey, Jim, where do you think we're going to be in another year? And it's been a little over a year. So where does this end, Jim Curtis? Where does this go? Is there a logical conclusion to any of this crap?
I think, and as much as I hate to say this, I think that somebody is going to try to shoot the president in the near term. They have gone so far overboard, and nothing the left is trying is working. They've been trying for 18 months now to get articles of impeachment on him. The meeting in Helsinki, they came out of that saying high crimes and treason.
Yeah, John Brennan came out and called him treasonous.
Yeah. Well, he's not the only one.
Oh, no.
Some of the senators have said that, some of the congressmen now.
That's true.
The Justice Department, or the House Intelligence Committee, is now going to subpoena the translator to make him or her talk.
I know. Isn't that obscene? That is so far over the top. Jim Curtis, I'd distill it down to this, and I'd like your opinion on where I'm going with this. I say this. I'm kind of in the Kurt Schlichter column of this. One side or the other has got to win. There are no two ways about it. Moderation just isn't going to cut it anymore. Bipartisanship and compromise won't do it. And you know what? At my age, I'm done. I'm done with both of those things. Leftists have managed to drag me kicking and screaming to the point where I've just concluded that I'm not surrendering any of my First Amendment rights. I'm not surrendering them, not to children, not to educators, not to the government, no one. And the same thing can be said, in my view, of the Second Amendment as well, and each and every subsequent amendment. My blog says I am pushback, and I am pushback. Am I wrong about this? I ain't giving up, that's for sure.
No, you're not wrong. One of the things that I find interesting is the Antifa, liberal left, the ones with their panties in an uproar.
Correct.
Up in Portland, got slapped down pretty heavily last month.
Yeah, that was weird.
The Patriot Prayer Group, which is not aggressive, fought back. And they kicked the Antifa's ass. And the Portland police came in and did not side with the left. We had a situation down here in Austin 6-8 months ago now where some of the Antifa tried to get up in the police face down there, and they met up with DPS. And DPS, which is our equivalent of state troopers, didn't even bother to get the riot gear out. All they got was the hickory sticks out and gave them a lesson in what you don't do in the state of Texas.
You beat me to one of my next questions. I was going to ask you, Jim Curtis, if you have seen any of these changes occur where you live in Texas, and you just provided the answer, and that is, yeah, I've seen how these things are changing, and how they're changing in Texas as well.
People are getting up on their hind legs. They are tired of it.
Yeah.
And this is what's interesting. I've got one friend that is gay and in a relationship, long-term relationship with another guy. He is moving from California to Texas.
Really?
He believes Texas is safer.
Really? Did he happen to tell you why?
He lives in Sacramento, or lived in Sacramento. They're in the process of moving this week.
Good man. Good men.
Yeah. He was literally becoming in fear for his life. He said that they have given up on the gays. They've given up on the lesbians. Now everything is transgender. That is the only thing they're pushing. Another friend of mine who is a bisexual, she's lesbian, but is bisexual.
Okay.
She has said the same thing. She said the left has thrown us under the bus. Now everything's transsexual.
Isn't that funny, though? And the reason I find that interesting is because you're not a Twitter kind of guy, and I understand that. There's a hashtag on Twitter right now saying walk away. And it's popular that a lot of people are getting onto Twitter, making videos and saying something like, and I'm going to have a post on walk away sometime next week, but the walk away is a movement from the Democrat Party for part and parcel of the reasons that you just listed, as in they're not listening to us anymore. Unless you're an illegal, we're not, blacks are saying en masse that the Democrats couldn't care for us. Once the Democrats found out that we are not a monolithic voting bloc, they decided to kick us to the curb and focus on, as you indicate, transsexuals and or illegals, because they featured that that's the newest monolithic voting bloc that they're going to be able to get.
Yep. And the interesting part of that is I encounter some Hispanics that are legal immigrants,
okay,
on a routine basis. And they all tell me they don't want the illegals here.
Yes, which is something that you never hear, what I call the LDAM, the leftists, Democrats, and American Media Maggots. You never hear them saying that. We got about 2 more minutes, or a minute and a half, before the end of this segment, and I want to, number one, thank you for being here tonight, but I want you to give out where you can be found, where you can be read, and if people want to find out more about your books, where can they get them as well?
Okay, my blog is oldnfo.org, and it's a WordPress blog. The books are available on Amazon under J.L. Curtis.
Okay.
And that is both Kindle. I'm in Kindle Unlimited also. So if you're an unlimited member, you can basically read the books for your $10 a month and not have to buy them. And you can also order hard copy through Amazon or through Barnes & Noble. And just to give you an example, Twilight has sold about 1,000 books.
Okay, good.
Since February.
Good.
531 of those are hard sales, in other words, an actual book or a Kindle buy.
Okay.
And 448 of those are Kindle Unlimited. So
very interesting.
There is an interesting mix. It's almost 50-50 now, with people reading it through Kindle Unlimited versus people that actually buy the book or buy the Kindle version. But I appreciate everybody that reads it, and I always like honest reviews.
Listen, there's one thing that I've discovered after talking to authors is if you think that you want to review the book, they ask, please review the book. Be honest, be truthful. They look for suggestions, etc., and I would imagine that you're in that same category as well. Be honest, be truthful, and tell me what you really think about the book.
Oh, yes. And if you want to chew my ass for killing your favorite character, feel free. You won't be the first person that's done that.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we have been speaking to veteran and author Jim Curtis. Go out and get his books. I have a hardback, not a hardback, I have a paperback, actual physical copy, like the one that I'm holding in my hand right now, of Cal Exit. And Twilight is coming to my house. I happen to buy them all because I just like paper. That's me being weird. But Jim Curtis, thank you ever so much for being here in the saloon tonight. And you are cordially, of course, invited back any time that you'd care to return.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for hosting me tonight. I really appreciate the time.
And thank you. Folks, we've been talking to Jim Curtis. We got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk buttery politics. And we're going to ask ourselves, hey, what's up with the Democrats these days? I got a pretty good idea, don't you?
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m., Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through shrmedia.com, highplainstalkradio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender ever,
because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
Hey, who's going to take Sean's chair?
I'll run the buttons if you want.
The what?
The slider
what?
thingies.
The
those
what?
things.
We have those?
Yeah, right over there.
Where?
It's on the board. That damn technology.
Fucking technology.
I know. What are we going to call it?
Call what?
The show.
What?
The show.
What show?
The new show, Wednesdays. Every Wednesday on shrmedia.com. 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. Sackheads.
Against tyranny.
There you
go. Against tyranny.
I like that. Let's do it.
You guys are port.
Hello. I'm Tim Hart. I'm the guy BZ hires, due to his shameless contract with the SHR Media Network, to voice his promos. He'd like me to tell you that the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be found on SHR Media Network, Spreaker, and YouTube every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American Media Maggots won't. You'll find that the speech is free, but the drinks are not. There, in the saloon, just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ is sending his personal drones of freedom into the wheelhouses and ossicles of lovers of sovereignty and liberty nationally and globally. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, BZ swears that no rights were harmed in the making of this promo.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
This is it, the second hour. The first hour went done, gone, boom, next. We spoke to author Jim Curtis. Great guy. Enjoyed the hell out of him. And you know what's fun about reading authors? Especially new authors. And Jim is relatively new. I think he began writing in 2014. The thing I enjoy about reading new authors, like, for example, Terrence McCauley. I'm going to have Terrence McCauley back. And Matthew Betley. I'm going to have him back. He's got a new book. And I want to have C.J. Box on sometime, because he's an extremely accomplished author. But what I want to point out to Jim Curtis, if he's listening, and even to Terrence McCauley, if he happens to be listening, he listens occasionally in podcast, is I enjoy watching the growth of authors, because you can compare their first work and enjoy it for itself, and then watch as they change and develop and mature and just get damn better, book from book, from book to book, and next book. And that's what I've watched when I've been reading Jim Curtis. His chops are really, really good. And I'm not going to put the word now in there. I'm not going to talk about a qualifier, because I don't think there are qualifiers required. All I'm saying is that Jim Curtis has gotten better as an author. This is not to say that you shouldn't read his first book, because he had some great chops even in his first book, Vignettes. And now with Twilight, you're starting to see Jim really, really explode in his craft. And I think that's wonderful. I said that to Terrence McCauley's face when he came on the second time. I said, sir, I can, in my opinion, I can see that you are clearly getting better. You have a handle on your craft. And I love watching the transition that occurs in authors. That's why when I find a new author, I love to read new authors, because they're fascinating, absolutely fascinating. What's also fascinating is this. Last night on Sackheads Against Tyranny with Sackheads Clint, I happened to find, and I held it for the end of the show, an article, and the headline went something like this. And when I first found it, I said, no, this can't be true, until I discovered that apparently it is true. The article was this. Lisa Page, the former strumpet who was fornicating with a married man. She's an FBI agent / attorney. I don't know if she was a legat. She may have been a legat, depending on where she was assigned. But she had an affair for apparently quite a while with Peter Stroke, S-T-R-Z-O-K. I guess you can call it Strock, or Dan Bongino calls him Peter Stroke. And she came in to testify behind closed doors. I don't think that she has conducted, there hasn't been any public testimony that's been conducted with her. However, this headline said, Lisa Page confirms the Chinese, not the Russians, hacked Hillary's emails. Now, before I tell you why this is significant, number one, I'm sure that you already understand why it's damn significant, but let me read the story so that you get a better grasp of what occurred. Washington. Hillary Rodham Clinton's BlackBerry was hacked by the Chinese, according to Peter Strzok's mistress, Lisa Page, who testified behind closed doors about her role in Operation Crossfire Hurricane. While her boyfriend Strzok stonewalled Congress, Page was open to cooperating behind the scenes with Republican lawmakers. Ohio's Jim Jordan led the way in getting Page into backdoor meetings where she aided investigators in their probe of Page and Strzok's collusion against the Trump government. True Pundit reports the embattled Page tossed James Comey, Andrew McCabe, Peter Strzok, and Bill Priestap, a guy that you probably haven't heard about very much, but he works for the FBI, among others, under the congressional bus, alleging the upper echelon of the FBI concealed intelligence confirming Chinese state-backed assets had illegally acquired former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's 30,000-plus missing emails, federal sources said. The Russians didn't do it. The Chinese did, according to well-placed FBI sources. This fact is very important because it was reported at Breitbart during the first campaign that Hillary Clinton's BlackBerry was hacked by the Chinese. This is what forced Peter Strzok and the Operation Crossfire Hurricane people to snap into motion, making sure that James Comey did not find Hillary Clinton gross and negligent for purposes of the Espionage Act of 1913. Now you understand why the umbrella had to be placed over her, and she had to be protected. She had to be protected by the FBI, and she had to be protected by the DOJ. Eric Holder, and then I knew that the information was going to get out. And I said at the time that it was like the tip of an iceberg. And I predicted, and it's proving true, that day by day, week by week, we're discovering more information about the depth and breadth of the corruption in the alphabet agencies. At the same time that leftists are pushing back against Donald Trump and anyone of a conservative bent who says that, maybe we ought to hedge our bets a little bit against total confidence in our alphabet agencies, to include the FBI, the DOJ, the NSA, and the CIA, but to name a few, because it turns out that, yes, they're kicking our confidence in them to the curb, because the revelations that are coming to the forefront now, you would never have found out had Hillary Clinton been elected as president, which is why you're finding unprecedented pushback by the alphabet agencies, because they know it's not too terribly much further before the real honest smoking gun is found, to the point where even the fucking American media maggots won't be able to do anything with it. And even they may have to acquiesce and say, well, maybe there is a there. And that's what all of these people live in abject fear of. Because one, it's all incredibly intertwined. It's all dovetailing. And we're discovering more information as the days and the weeks go by. Newly released emails show that Hillary Clinton was aware of the security problems with her personal BlackBerry, but used the device anyway for sending and receiving emails. Clinton's knowledge of the BlackBerry problem and her apparent disregard for its implications marks a crucial point in any potential criminal case that could be made against her by the Department of Justice. To prove a violation of the Espionage Act of 1913, prosecutors have to show that a person's gross negligence allowed national defense information to be lost, stolen, abstracted, or destroyed. Continuing with the article, because I didn't read it last night during Sackheads. I'm so sorry, but I'm just seeing this no BlackBerry contact permitted in my office, and I'm on the way to the shuttle to New York, Clinton said in an email to personal Clinton health advisor Mark Hyman on February 27th, 2009. The email was obtained by Judicial Watch, a nonprofit transparency group that is suing the State Department. Tomorrow I leave for Egypt, Israel, Europe, and Turkey for a week. I hope the meeting and the hearing goes well. Let me know, Clinton added. She was referring to the fact that her BlackBerry was not allowed in her 7th floor Mahogany Row office at the State Department due to its security complications and vulnerability. But guess what? She decided in her infinite, smug, knowledgeable wisdom that she was going to keep on using the BlackBerry for classified information, at least until 2011. Also, an aide. Her top aide at the time, Wendy Sherman, made it clear in a 2013 video that Clinton was exchanging classified emails on her BlackBerry that could not have existed on a non-classified system. So, after having broken essentially this story on Sackheads yesterday, putting it on my blog today, I thought when I wake up this morning, Thursday morning, I'm going to go to Drudge Report, I'm going to go to Fox, I'm going to go to ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, MSNBC, blah, 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 blah. You see where I'm going with this? Not a fucking word. Not a peep. Nothing. Why is that? And I think you know the idea, or excuse me, the reason for that. That's how deeply in the mud this United States is at this point in time. One of the reasons that people cannot trust the American media is they cover and not cover what they wish. Now, eventually, I believe this is going to get out. Because oddly enough, I haven't seen, and I went to go see my favorite little site like PolitiFact and Snopes, because they don't lean left or anything like that. There's nothing yet indicating it's like they're on silent mode. It's like they're in a submarine and everyone is going, shh, quiet. Everyone's listening and we can't cover this right now. It's not that they're saying anything negative about the story. It's not as though they're refuting the story or saying this is a bunch of crap. No, they're just not saying anything about the story at all. I will let you draw your own conclusions about that. Now we're going to talk about the conundrum of Page and Strzok themselves. This is from Fox News. Lisa Page is cooperative and credible, lawmakers say after a 5-hour closed-door session. Former FBI lawyer Lisa Page was cooperative and credible in a closed-door session with select House committee members that lasted nearly 5 hours. U.S. Representative Mark Meadows, a Republican of North Carolina, had been among Page's harshest critics heading into the session, but he said her cooperation speaks well of her, according to The Hill. Meadows said he thinks the American people would be happy with Friday's transcribed interviews, the Washington Post reported. She's been willing to help in the spirit of transparency. We've certainly learned additional things today. And apparently some of the things they've learned that was revealed in that article have decided that they're going to stay silent for now. That would certainly be, however, in direct contravention of what little information the superior and keening little Peter Strzok deigned to parse out a couple of weeks ago on a Wednesday. Now, Lisa Page did defy, if you remember, a subpoena for last Wednesday, and she would have been held in contempt of Congress had she not appeared at that last Friday's session. She primarily answered questions about text messages with Peter Strzok that allegedly showed bias against then-candidate Donald Trump. And some of the people said, yeah, she's a credible witness. This is new information. That information is good and verifiable, and we kind of like it. Now, Lisa Page, okay, let's be blunt. She's nothing more than a stepping stone in a whirlwind of choices that Peter Strzok had to make in the past few years. Lisa Page was possessed of a certain, let's say, a certain Mayan, the likes of which Strzok apparently couldn't otherwise acquire at home, or else maybe he wouldn't have strayed. They were like common soldiers, you know, united in thought and deed and pillow biting and politics, right? Say, isn't that a new Austrian industrial musical group? Pillow biting and politics. Now, in German, that would come out Kissen, Beißen und Politik, or maybe that's a new Angela Merkel call-in radio show. I'm not sure. And you, of course, remember this, because I'm going to play it again. I'm sorry, call me bad and evil and mean. I'm going to play this again. This was the little tete-a-tete that Louis Gohmert had between himself and Peter Strzok. And speaking of strokes, during this and afterwards, the leftists themselves had, did they ever have strokes
and I can't
themselves.
help but wonder, when I see you looking there with a little smirk, how many times did you look so innocent into your wife's eye and lie to her about Lisa?
Mr. Chairman, this is outrageous.
The credibility of a witness
Shame
is always
on
an issue.
Mr. Chairman, please,
Mr. Chairman, this is intolerable.
This is an entertainment gift that keeps on giving.
Harassment of the witness.
What's wrong with that? You need your medication.
And let me tell you, when you have text messages, Mr. Strzok, the way you do, saying the things you did, you'd been better off coming in here and say, look, that was my bias. And you kind of get around to that a little bit when you say, hey, you know, everybody's got political views. Those are called biases, and we all have them. And you have come in here and said, I had no bias.
No, none.
And you do it with a straight face. And I watched you in the private testimony you gave. And I told some of the other guys, he is really good. He's lying. He knows, we know he's lying. And he could probably pass the polygraph. It's amazing.
Mr. Chairman.
And that's why I love that. Let's be honest, okay? Here's the deal. Everybody said that Robert Mueller is such a sterling guy. After all, he was the man who removed Peter Strzok from the special counsel, right? Let's be honest. Here's what really happened. Robert Mueller wasn't going to fire and replace Peter Strzok until the day that the DOJ, the Department of Justice, not Mueller or any of his group, brought certain problems to Mueller's attention. Strzok, as far as Mueller was concerned, was doing God's work on the Mueller team in keeping with his theme of, against Trump by any means necessary. Does that kind of sound like Antifa? Well, it sure as shit does to me. Mueller had the latitude, but sadly, he lost a really devoted soldier, but only because Strzok was, he was stupid. Had the texts not been revealed, or perhaps not even created, and this is an important aspect of it, had they not been created on FBI taxpayer-paid equipment, on FBI taxpayer time, Mueller might have continued to be the little happy bivalve mollusk packed in sand. Bias? Hey, what bias? Bank on it. That's exactly what Mueller would have done. Unless the DOJ came knocking, he would have done nothing and been like the happy little clam in sand. So, okay, Peter Strzok, he's classified as this expert counterintelligence agent, right? He's a guy who hangs himself out. In truth, this is what he does. He hangs his butt out in a potential honeypot scheme, okay, opens himself to potential blackmail by opposing agents or forces, and then he conducts his bias and his political nature in the clear in today's digital age. Do you know, or have you learned nothing, Peter Strzok, about technology? We're supposed to trust this guy. That's a question. We're supposed to trust this guy? And then add in all of his egregious examples of bias in the Hillary Rodham Clinton investigation, because he's the guy that interviewed her, and the Trump-Russia investigation. So he got it great on both ends. He was able to minimize and negate, essentially, Hillary Rodham Clinton's involvement in any of this, and he was able to step into the Trump-Russia collusion investigation, invited on board with open arms by Robert Mueller. It doesn't get any better than that. Okay, in the eyes of Strzok and everybody like him, as far as they're concerned, yeah, we, the people, we are that stupid, okay? So let me ask those, and I think I asked people yesterday, but I'm going to ask the question again. Let me ask those people who think that Strzok's documented written biases didn't affect his thoughts, his deeds, or actions. Let me ask you guys this question, all right? Let's insert your name for Trump's in all those text messages. Peter Strzok is subject to sitting on a jury where you're the defendant. Would you want him to be seated in the jury? I mean, after all, he insists that he can be completely unbiased. Now, one of the best tweets that I've seen about this issue came out by Ann Coulter. It was grand. I mean, if you liked Louis Gohmert, you're going to like this from Ann Coulter. And the tweet goes like this. Peter Strzok's wife threatened to leave until he explained that not once did he let his affair with Lisa Page affect any specific actions he took in their marriage. If that ain't grand, I don't know why. Plus, there's this that's also thrown into the mix that I want everybody to remember, because I know how the federal system works, and they give immunity to people for certain specific reasons when they're targeting an individual. Anybody remember when Andy McCabe, former number 2, the assistant director at the FBI, before he got fired after an OPR review, recommended that exact same thing to the IG, the Inspector General, Michael Horowitz? Anybody remember the little statement from Andy McCabe that said, you know what? If I'm going down, others are going down with me.
You said that
as well.
And Alan,
here we have liberals and conservatives agreeing.
Thank you. This is where civil libertarians, conservatives can agree. Unbridled power. Unchecked power to spy on American citizens for flimsy reasons, as they did with this Carter Page. Anyone looking at Carter Page, talking to him for more than 5 minutes, knows the idea that Carter Page is like work.
By the way, this is Laura Ingraham on with, let me see, she's talking to Alan Dershowitz and Sarah Carter. By the way, if you're not reading or going to sarahacarter.com, one of the few real good damn journalists left in the United States of America, along, of course, with Susan Katz-Keating.
Working with the Russians to throw the election is ridiculous. I'm sorry. I would bet my house on it. It's ridiculous. Alan, go.
Well, remember, there's one other possibility of how information may be forthcoming. That is, McCabe may sue under his contract to get his pension, and there might be discovery and a trial, and that would be a way of getting even more information that maybe the OPR doesn't want to produce, but would have to produce as part of discovery to justify their actions, because he has a remedy under law.
Well, his remedy under law is very limited, though. FBI does not have the same protection.
Listen to this now. This is very important in terms of civil service law.
Of the Merit Service Protection Board as other federal employees. So I think he's very limited, frankly.
Let me read a little bit more. We have more now from Andrew McCabe's statement just released, guys, after his firing tonight. He writes, the OIGs, the Officer Inspector General, focus.
So, by the way, if you haven't grokked already, this is just after McCabe's firing, but I want you to hear this because of the sentence that I told you about a little bit earlier before I begin playing this cut.
On me, and this report became a part of an unprecedented effort by the administration, driven by the president himself, to remove me from my position, destroy my reputation, and possibly strip me of a pension that I worked 21 years to earn. Sarah Carter, he is focusing on the president, and I think that the fact that he's going back to Trump tells you a lot more about Andrew McCabe. He is furious at the president. It's directed at the president. He's going to get a lot of attention because of his focus on the president.
Here's the point. President Trump had nothing to do with it. Again, this points to the fact that almost all of these shitsticks at the FBI are abject liars, continue to do so because people do not call them out on it. Andrew McCabe knows full fucking well that what occurred is the OPR, the Office of Professional Responsibility, conducted an investigation on Andrew McCabe, the number 2 guy, the assistant director at the FBI. They concluded that he was not honest with them in certain speeches with them, in talking to them, and also in talking to other FBI agents. Then OPR, which is the equivalent of IA, the internal investigations portions of police departments around the country, recommended his firing, and then the Inspector General, Michael Horowitz, weighed in on this, concurred with the OPR's conclusions, and then also officially recommended McCabe's firing, which then occurred. Trump had nothing to do with it. This is the FBI attempting themselves to clean house, meaning it was so egregious that they couldn't even let Andrew McCabe get away with this.
It's so interesting. He believes this is all about the president. No, this is about his colleagues at OPR who found him, the lack of candor, who found he had
Lying.
Plain and simple, he lied. A lot of former FBI agents that I've spoken to and current said, I hope he's fired. Is he going to get fired today? That's all I kept hearing all day, because they realized that if they had done this, they would have been fired too. And there's a lot of ongoing investigations right now. This is not just about Michael Horowitz. At the DOJ right now, remember, there is a prosecutor looking into the unmasking, the FISA abuse that has been taking place with Carter Page in particular. So we've got a number of investigations, and McCabe McCabe is worried. And one thing that I did hear is that...
Listen to this. This is the money shot.
McCabe has said over and over again, if I go down, I'm taking everybody else
people
with
down
me.
with him. Oh, now we have Ron Kessler, author of the book, The Secret.
Okay, that's the point I wanted you to hear. McCabe is saying, if I go down, I'm going to make sure that other people go down with me as well. It's time to take a break. Folks, you're listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show live and direct here from the SHR Media studios. Go to shrmedia.com for all your political and broadcast needs. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go there.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m., Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through shrmedia.com, highplainstalkradio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
Hey, who's going to take Sean's chair?
I'll run the buttons if you want.
The what?
The slider
what?
thingies. Those
what?
things.
We have those?
Yeah, right over there.
Where?
It's on the board. That damn technology.
Fucking technology.
I know. What are we going to call it?
Call what?
The show.
What?
The show.
What show?
The new show, Wednesdays. Every Wednesday on shrmedia.com. 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. Sackheads.
Against tyranny.
There you
Against
go.
tyranny.
I like that. Let's do it.
You guys are porked.
Hello, I'm Tim Hart. I'm the guy BZ hires, due to his shameless contract with the SHR Media Network, to voice his promos. He'd like me to tell you that the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be found on SHR Media Network, Spreaker, and YouTube every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American Media Maggots won't. You'll find that the speech is free, but the drinks are not. There, in the saloon, just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ is sending his personal drones of freedom into the wheelhouses and ossicles of lovers of sovereignty and liberty nationally and globally. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, BZ swears that no rights were harmed in the making of this promo.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
This is the final half hour. Thanks for listening. Thanks to Jim Curtis, my author from the first hour. I've just been sending text messages back and forth to him. He appreciated being here, and we had a great time doing it. Now we're talking about the LDAM, leftist Democrats and American Media Maggots, and how a very important article about the true nature of Hillary Rodham Clinton's emails and her text messaging. Lisa Page released or testified in closed-door hearings that, well, it was China, apparently, who hacked HRC's equipment, not Russia, as everyone else was expected to say. Then there came this article. This shit is starting to blow up. I don't know if you're noticing that, but shit is starting to blow up all across the fruited plain, on the leftist side, on the Democrat side, and certainly the American Media Maggots side. Here's another article that indicates that very self-same thing. Dodgy anti-Trump dossier authors, by the way, that would be Christopher Steele, his tale of Russian meddling clashes now with Mueller's findings. Imagine that. Dossier writer Christopher Steele's assertion that Moscow bankrolled its election hacking through laundered pension funds via Russian diplomats in Washington isn't supported by two official U.S. reports. Mr. Steele, whose anti-Trump work was financed with money from the Hillary Clinton campaign and the Democrat National Committee, wrote of an elaborate money-skimming operation by the embassy and other consulates. A diplomat spy in Washington, he said, was involved in laundering Russian veterans' pensions to pay for hacking Democrat Party computers and stealing documents. Special counsel Robert Mueller's indictment of 12 Russian intelligence officers on Friday offers what appears to be the first official report on how Moscow paid for the hacking. The indictment makes no mention of diplomats or pension funds. The indictment says the Russians used crypto or digital currencies to pay vendors for the use of servers and internet domains. The indictment does not state the ultimate source of money to purchase cryptocurrencies whose owners' identities are easier to hide than those using traditional bank transactions. What's more, the operation was not expensive. The Mueller indictment puts the costs of servers and domains at $95,000 to try to wreck the 2016 U.S. presidential election. In a second report on hacking on March 22nd, Republicans in the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence also made no mention of any Russian embassy role or pensions. A congressional source says the committee heard no evidence of pension money laundering. Overall, the Republican majority concluded there was no evidence the Trump campaign colluded or coordinated with Moscow in its concerted 2015 to 16 effort to hack Democrat Party computers and spread false anti-Clinton stories on social media. Mr. Steele, however, said Trump campaign manager Paul Manafort and campaign volunteer Carter Page jointly coordinated the Russian interference with Moscow, but there is no evidence the two knew or talked with each other. And Mr. Steele's dossier describes an unverified extensive conspiracy between the Trump campaign and the Kremlin. Russia raised the money, he said, by skimming money from pensions to Russian nationals living in the U.S. Here's Mr. Steele's description. In the wider context campaign Kremlin cooperation, source claimed that the intelligence network being used against Clinton comprised of three elements. There were agents, facilitators within the Democrat Party structure itself. Secondly, Russian agents and associated offensive cyber operators based in the U.S. And thirdly, state-sponsored cyber operatives who happen to be working in Russia. This is very interesting. Mr. Steele's tale of laundered pension funds contained an accusation directed straight at the Russian embassy in Washington. He accused Mikhail Kalugin, chief of the economics section, of heavy involvement in the pension scam. Mr. Steele said he was whisked out of Washington on short notice as news of Russian hacking gained steam. So basically what we're seeing is this information. Now there are little stress cracks and fractures. I got a final story. I think I'll be able to do it in the remaining 20 minutes. And if not, then shame on me. We may be going into a hair of overtime, but probably not much. But what I'm about to conclude is this, and I'm going to use prior sources and prior stories to support this. And my bone of contention is the FBI can no longer be trusted. And maybe you're shocked. Maybe you're not. But not because of the bottom in a clear way. I'll get around to that. But because of the top. So trust me that, as I've said, it pains me to say it. After having worked in the federal system, I worked for the FBI, and I was a sworn U.S. Marshal, so I'm familiar with the federal system. I spent the last 35 of my 41 years working for a local California law enforcement agency, and I retired in 2016, so I know a little bit about law enforcement. James Comey was, to date, although I'm open about Christopher Wray, James Comey was, to date, the worst FBI director I've ever encountered, and I've seen a few. He took bias, political insertion, corruption, and manipulation to a level even greater than that of J. Edgar Hoover on his worst day, because what Hoover lacked that Comey didn't was all the intrusive technology that he needed that were available to him that Comey and Wray now have at their fingertips. So the jury kind of may as yet sort of be officially out in terms of Christopher Wray, the current FBI director. But in my opinion, he is well and truly on his way towards a serious precipice when I noted that Christopher Wray, right off the bat, was concocting and parsing what I call weasel words in front of Congress.
From South Carolina, the chairman of the Oversight and Government Reform Committee, Mr. Gowdy, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Goodlatte. Director Wray, somewhere today.
Okay, so this is, of course, Trey Gowdy having a conversazione with Christopher Wray.
A group of our fellow citizens will be asked if they can be fair, impartial, free of bias before they sit in judgment of others on a jury. Even in the smallest of courtrooms where there are nothing but empty seats and no television cameras. Somewhere today, those selected to sit in judgment of their fellow citizens will be told that they must wait until the very last witness testifies and the last piece of evidence has been introduced before they can even begin to deliberate on an outcome. So if our fellow citizens should be impartial and free of bias,
imagine that.
And if our fellow citizens must wait until the last piece of evidence is introduced, the last witness is called, before they can reach a verdict, a conclusion, an outcome, then I don't think it's asking too much that the Department of Justice and the FBI do the same thing. There is no member of Congress who holds the department and the Bureau in higher esteem than I do. There are others who hold you in high esteem, but I would take second place to no one. And I have defended the department and the Bureau when, frankly, it was pretty damn lonely to do so. When my Democrat friends were asking that Jim Comey be prosecuted for a Hatch Act violation about this time last year, they now want him canonized. But this time last year, they wanted him prosecuted for a Hatch Act violation.
Imagine that.
When your predecessor sat right where you're sitting and was embroiled in a fight with this little tiny startup company called Apple, I was on the side of the Bureau. When there are calls for special counsel, even today, I reject them because I trust the women and men of the Department of Justice and the Bureau, the professionals that we hired, to do their job. And
now that's true. Trey Gowdy is he is not a supporter of anyone else's special counsel.
Vast majority of line prosecutors and line agents are exactly what you described in your opening statement. They are exactly what you described. But unfortunately, the last 2 years have not been good years for the Bureau, and they have not been good years for the department. We had an attorney general meet with the spouse of a target of an investigation on the tarmac and asked that an investigation be called something other than an investigation.
Of course, that was DOJ Attorney General Loretta Lynch.
But be called a matter. We've had an attorney general recuse himself from the largest, most significant investigation currently in his office.
And will ever be in his office, making Jeff Sessions one of the worst, cowardly, craven attorney generals I have ever had the displeasure to witness.
We had the director of the FBI appropriate a major charging decision away from the Department of Justice because he was concerned that the public wouldn't have confidence if the Department of Justice handled that decision themselves.
And that was their job to do. What no one points out is that Comey decided he was going to do his job, and he was going to do the job of the DOJ at the time, according to Loretta Lynch, because she didn't want to step in a pile of steaming shit. As far as she was concerned, that was a great thing. I'll let Jimmy the Leak take it on the chin for me.
We had an FBI director write 2 politically volatile letters weeks before an election. We had an FBI director memorialize conversations he had with the President of the United States because he didn't trust the President's recall of those conversations.
Now, do you think the President of the United States, Donald John Trump, hasn't read or hasn't been told about that? That is to say, an FBI director having no confidence in him. And you should wonder at all why the President of the United States, the current sitting President of the United States, tends to say something similar to, you know what, my confidence in my DOJ and my confidence in the alphabet agencies and the FBI is along that line too, you know.
And I think what frustrates some folks is when Director Comey wanted special counsel for President Trump, he leaked one of those memos. When he didn't have confidence in Loretta Lynch, we didn't hear a word about it. There were no
funny how that works out, isn't that? Isn't that odd?
Leaks that prompted special counsel when he didn't trust Loretta Lynch. There were leaks when he decided he didn't trust President Trump. We've had an acting AG fired. We've had the director.
This is why I like Trey Gowdy's incisive viewpoints and his incisive language, his precise, common sense, logical, but very precise language, because he was a prosecutor.
The FBI fired. And we can't manage to find prosecutors who haven't donated to presidential candidates. Out of all the universe of prosecutors that you used to work with, and I used to work with, and Johnny Ratcliffe used to work with, we can't find a dozen that haven't donated to major political candidates.
Well, they must not be out there.
And now we have Special Agent Strzok. It was the Inspector General, not the Department of Justice, not the Bureau who found these texts. It was the Inspector General. And I share your confidence in his objectivity. I share it. But it shouldn't have been the Inspector General that had to bring this to our attention 12 months after it happened.
Thank you.
And that same agent is the one who reportedly interviewed Secretary Clinton in an interview that you and I have never seen conducted that way before. To have potential witnesses and potential targets sit in on a witness interview, I appreciate your professionalism and your unwillingness to want to say how unprecedented that is, so I'm not going to ask you. I'll just tell you, it's unprecedented. And that same agent is alleged to have been the one that changed the language. You're right, they are synonyms. Extremely careless is a synonym for grossly negligent, which begs the question, why change it? But you and I know why it was changed. It was changed because the statute says grossly negligent. And if you're not going to charge someone, God knows you don't want to track the statute with the language that you use. That would be stupid. What's also stupid is to do that memo 2 months before you've interviewed the target. That memo was drafted before the last witness was interviewed. Director, it was drafted before the target of the investigation was even interviewed. Which makes people wonder, was the decision made before the interviews?
Stop just for a second. Stop just for a second. Think about this. Think about the implications. You're talking about a sitting congressman, Trey Gowdy, who's pointing out such brain-glazingly, obviously salient points to a current FBI director, and that he would even have to say this, and that Christopher Wray or anyone else would have something bombastic to say as a reply to that, to the facts in evidence, the facts of the matter, is a shatteringly amazing commentary upon the status of the FBI in terms of a valid law enforcement agency today, which is why I go back to say, listen to what has been said all this hour about the FBI, about Lisa Page, about what's been going on. That this country has gotten to that point where this man, Trey Gowdy, has to recap such obvious things, and even that falls on deaf ears? Where is really this country right now? Where is it going? I wish I could tell you. I have no faith in the FBI, and Trey Gowdy is delineating quite clearly why that is.
We're finished. And now we believe that that same agent is also involved in the investigation into President Trump and his campaign, and may have interviewed Michael Flynn. That hasn't been confirmed, and we don't know what role, if any, he took in the preparation of documents for court filing. So
let me make an aside also, as I am wont to do now and then. The agents who interviewed Michael Flynn in a situation where Michael Flynn did not think he was being interviewed, I should point out, came back by saying they believed in the veracity of Michael Flynn, and that mattered nothing.
I'm going to say this because I'm out of time, and I appreciate the chairman's patience with me. You have a really important job. When all else fails in this country, we want to be able to look to the FBI. We want to be able to look to the Department of Justice. When all the other institutions we trust, including Congress, appear to be broken, we want to be able to look to you.
That's his point and my point about saying that it's broken. I can't trust them. And that's this. I'm going to make the point right now, and we'll continue to listen to Trey Gowdy because it is eminently entertaining, if nothing else. But I'm making the point is, when your DOJ is broken, and your FBI is broken, and the NSA is broken, to whom else do you go for veracity or truth or even justice?
It's been a really bad 2 years. I am counting on you to...
There is no FBI B. There is no FBI or DOJ B. It doesn't exist.
Help answer our questions in Congress, our fellow citizens' questions, but I am more than anything counting on you to go back to work for that blindfolded woman holding a set of scales that really doesn't give a whit about politics. That's the FBI that I want.
Time, gentleman, has expired.
Chairman,
the director
Mr.
is
Chairman,
welcome to respond.
Okay, so what happens is that he's not the droid the FBI is looking for, and droid he is. That is to say, Christopher Wray. It's clear in one recent example that a case worked by the FBI regarding the Bundy prosecution in Nevada, which resulted in Judge Gloria Navarro declaring a mistrial, that the FBI wasn't on the up and up in regard to that. The decision to intervene came after U.S. District Court Judge Gloria Navarro declared a mistrial over the government's, quote, willful failure to disclose information to the defense, saying it would have been impossible for the four co-defendants to receive a fair trial. And now, because of it, A.G. Sessions has said that maybe it's time to find out why, from the Washington Times. A.G. Sessions orders examination of the Bundy case after a mistrial over prosecutorial bungling. Attorney General Jeff Sessions stepped into the Bundy prosecution after the mistrial, ordering a third-party examination of the case in light of the latest government snafu. The Attorney General takes this issue very seriously and has personally directed that an expert in the department's discovery obligations be deployed to examine the case and advise as to the next step, said Ian D. Pryor, Principal Deputy Director for Public Affairs, in a late Wednesday statement. The decision came after that U.S. District Court Judge, Gloria Navarro, declared a mistrial over the government's willful failure to disclose information. That's purposeful. That's not a misstep. That's not a mistake. That's not an oopsie. the FBI, make no mistake, the FBI was involved in that case. And yeah, their role in the judge's decision is unclear for me because that asks questions that demand answers.
Well, that very tense 2014 public land standoff trial involving rancher Cliven Bundy and his sons has been declared a mistrial.
Contact 13 investigative reporter Joe Bartels is live at the federal courthouse in downtown with the shocking developments. Joe?
Yeah, Yasmin and Dana, all of these details coming down here within the last hour and a half, and within the last 2 minutes outside of federal court here, Cliven's two sons have emerged from the courthouse here, and all of his supporters out here, they were holding up signs and asking people to honk, supporting what happened here in court. Now, this trial against Cliven Bundy, his two sons, and another man fell apart this morning after a federal judge decided prosecutors failed to turn over key evidence to the defense. This all stems from that armed standoff in Bunkerville, Nevada in 2014. Authorities allege Bundy and his armed supporters clashed with the Bureau of Land Management over cattle grazing rights. Bundy has been lauded as a symbol by some who believe big chunks of land within the American Southwest, including much of Nevada, should be under state control and not the federal government. Back out.
Anyway, that was one particular case. Apparently Jeff Sessions did get a few testicles when he decided that he was going to recommend that occur, that there be an investigation. But let's go back a little bit. Let's go back, as we recall, FBI Director James Comey, as Trey Gowdy indicated. He independently decided, or so independently it may be, perhaps collusion with Barack Hussein Obama and Loretta Lynch. I would submit yes. And the reason I say that is because, do you think there was anything at all in the Obama administration that Obama was unaware? Is Obama a stupid man in situations as highly important as that? Do you think Obama was not kept up to speed on all of these various investigations, or was he simply a distracted individual who was not in complete control of his administration? I don't buy that for a fucking second. And you remember that Director James Comey recommended in, I think it was July of 2016, that he would not recommend that indictment for Hillary Clinton or even the impaneling of a grand jury, though it wasn't his decision to make. And as I indicated, Loretta Lynch was happy as a little clam to make sure that that decision was made by him publicly as well. They were happy to place that decision right back at the feet of Jimmy the Leak. And in terms of, whatever he decides, that's good enough for us, because I abdicate my job. When it comes to Jimmy the Leak, I abdicate my job and what I'm supposed to be doing. The New York Times said, specifically, Attorney General Lynch said she would accept whatever recommendations career prosecutors and the FBI director made. Well, wait, Loretta, isn't that your decision to make? Oh, yes, as a matter of fact, it was. And she made her decision, which is to push it back down. This is radioactive, and I really don't want to be involved in any way, shape, or form. Though, of course, the fix was in. The fix was in. Any logical thinking human being knew that the meeting, the tarmac meeting, that I'm going to go back to, between Attorney General Lynch and Bill Clinton at the airport was, can anybody believe that it wasn't? It was just completely coincidental. It was a coinky-dink, and that there wasn't an agreement by Lynch to assure Bill Clinton that Hillary would not be indicted. Judicial Watch filed a FOIA request, and those documents started streaming in as well. And we already know, as Trey Gowdy indicated, that Comey drafted Hillary's exoneration letter literally months before she was even completely interrogated. I have so many other points to make about that, but I think you now have a fairly decent understanding of why it is that, sadly, I conclude I can no longer trust the FBI.
Monsieur has been locked!
We'll meet
again.
And if that isn't sad, I really don't know what is. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk, Bobcat, Saloon radio show, live and direct here at the SHR Media Network. If you want to contact me, you can find me on my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net. I am on Twitter at BZEP, B-Z-E-P. You want to send me hate mail like everybody else, bz at shrmedia.com. My original intro music is by Possessed Tranquility. My promotional consideration is from the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And by Pratt & Whitney Engines Thrust. You can trust. Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, with whom I will be consorting. Oh, let's see what time it is right now. Oh, that's right, in less than an hour. And I want to thank Jim Curtis for being here in the first hour. I want to thank you for listening live. I want to thank everybody for being in the chat room. And I want to thank you for listening to this in podcast. Have a great weekend, folks. God bless. Take care. Be safe.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben. Good night, everyone.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good
night, Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.